Councillor Mickey Marley.
The right honourable, the full title. Yeah. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's an honour to be here tonight as we celebrate the anniversary of HereNI, supporting, advocating for, and empowering lesbian and bisexual women in Belfast and across the north for the past 20 years. This milestone represents 2 decades of progress, courage, and resilience, and it's indication of the valuable work that everyone who has been part of HereNI and of the work of everyone who's been a part of HereNI's journey. HereNI began its story with groundbreaking work of the Lesbian Advocacy Service Initiative, born from the Mighty Silence research in 2002. That research led by Mary Query, who we are so delighted to be here with us tonight. Hello. Gave voice to lesbian and bisexual women who had been overlooked and silenced for too long. Mary's follow-up project in 2007, Visible Women, continued to illuminate the experiences of women who were often unseen in society. Both studies laid the groundwork for what HereNI has become today, a powerful advocate and supportive community. In 2012, HereNI adopted its new name to reflect the expanding reach of its services, as well as the growing diversity of its service users. Today, HereNI offers an incredible range of programs, from family support groups, youth initiatives, to personal development and advocacy. I was just saying to Cara a minute ago, Cara said, "Oh, you won't need your notes to make a speech." I did have this speech written, and then on the way up decided, actually no, I don't want to say most of that anymore. It sounded really kind of corporate, and we have a better relationship than that. But today, and this also is completely something I wasn't going to say, today I was doing the cross laying for the start of the Remembrance services. Obviously this weekend is Remembrance Sunday. And I went downstairs from City Hall, there's everyone in with their medals and everything. And there was a woman from the Royal British Legion. And we sort of exchanged a look, like that look that we know, right? One of us. And we went out and we done sort of a walkabout out at the cenotaph, she told me where to stand and everything. And then the other 2 that were with us sort of walked away and they went in and she went, "I have something for you, but I've been told not to give it to you." And I don't know if I saw that in my pocket. I do. And she gave me, this is probably the first time for this in this building, she gave me a poppy with the progress flag on it, actually made by the Royal British Legion. I wouldn't be a poppy person, but she started crying after she gave it to me. And she said, "I was kicked out of the army 12 days before they lifted the ban on LGBT people serving in the forces." And she started thanking, I'm going to cry, she started thanking me for being the first openly gay mayor and for the representation in politics. And I was very, very touched by what she was saying, but it also sort of made me think, you know, our representation in politics of our community is crap. We have 3 openly gay MLAs, all of which are male, and they have made big progress in where they've been. One of them is now deputy leader of a party, one of them is a speaker, one of them is a minister. But in terms of women's LGBT representation in politics, there really isn't much there, if any. And it makes you think about why organisations like HereNI are so important, because that representation in politics, being all male, that filters down to how people look at our community as well, and even us as a community. When there's something on the news, or there's people representing our community as a whole, they are usually like me, like white gay men. And it just makes it more important that the work that you guys are doing is just so incredible and just is so important to society. And that's why it's so great that to see how far HereNI have grown in the past 20 years to becoming this organisation with 10 members of staff. Cara will tell me if don't remind you that 8 of them are up for renewal next year, and if you have anybody picked them. And also, a couple of years ago, I done a fundraiser for HereNI. I couldn't remember what it was. It was the marathon, or not the marathon, the marathon, or going up the River Lycan in a blow-up bubble. So if I can do it, then anyone else can do. So if you have any fundraising ideas, go ahead. But yeah, I just wanted to share that story because I think it is quite important. The work that goes on here, a lot of it is community initiatives. It's empowering women, it's parenting groups, it's getting people accredited training courses, but all of that is just the vehicle for the change that we need to see in our community, and that is having more women represented in public life and in politics and places where we're not meant to be represented. Our job is to take up space that was created never for us to take up. I don't have a closing line, but thank you very much for inviting me. And Amanda, thank you for the cupcakes because they were great. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, aka Mickey. And I would now like to call on Mary Ellen to come up and present some certificates to her fantastic volunteers.
Hello everyone, and thank you for coming along this evening. Along with Joe, we run the LGBTQIA plus Heritage Project. We have delivered some training this year, some of it accredited training, and unfortunately some of the people getting certificates couldn't come along tonight, but thankfully some of them are here. So the first one is Joe himself for passing the PQ UK Level 3 in Education and Training. The second one is Amanda McConnell, again for passing the PQ UK Level 3 Education and Training. We also ran a tour guiding course with CN Level 2, and unfortunately none of our tour guides are here. I'd like to say they were given tours, but it's too dark and they're not here. So, our other person, someone who has volunteered with us for a number of years, and makes me proud every time I see her, is Kirsty Colmack. And again, Kirsty, as well as completing her PhD, also completed the PQ UK Level 3 in Education and Training. Can I say next year we're going to have lots more certificates to give out because we are an OCN accredited centre, and we can also do certificate training in Sophie. So speak to my colleagues, Sophie, if anyone's interested in that.
Thanks to the staff and the wonderful volunteers from the Heritage Project. So could I now call upon Andrea, one of our service users, who would like to say a few words about HereNI. Thank you.
not myself, feeling suicidal, confused about my sexuality, everything. Then I was referred to HereNI, slowly but surely. I just went mad again. Then I became more confident. We were doing things about finding out about ourselves, doing workshops. There is so much, and being with everybody else, everything that we do is also asked, Jennifer always asks us, is there anything that you would like to do? Always right on the form, the dreaded form. I won't complain. Recently, we have done like a drum, I think that's what it's called, the drum workshop. It was amazing. We have also done meditation, mindfulness. We did have a night of bingo, and it was quite fun. Really, just what I want to say is, I have never belonged to any sort of group, and I've joined here, and it has basically given me the skills and the tools and the mindset to change my life and to be who I am. I tell everybody about the group, even my mommy wants to come. It is that good. All the ladies there is great, the group's getting bigger. I can't say enough about HereNI. It saved me. So, I'm not a great speaker.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for your kind words about HereNI, and a big plug for Jennifer's group. And you are a fantastic speaker. Well done, thank you. Now I would like to call upon Mary Query to come up and give a few words about the origins of HereNI via Lassie. And Mary Query is one of the roots of the project. Thank you.
So how do you follow that, Andrea? So I'm going to be like Nick, I'm not going to be too corporate. And just first of all to say a big congratulations that HereNI has lasted this long and has thrived as 10 workers now, as far as I know. And that the biggest challenge that we have always had has been visibility. And I think that remains a challenge, that we are, to some people, they would rather that we kept it that way. And while, Mickey mentioned, and a number of people have mentioned, all the work that HereNI has done down through the ages, and I would always like to remind people, I'm not speaking to the right audience for it, but people in this audience, all of you are also contributing to your communities. You're not just part of what I would call the queer community, and that is so inspirational, and we don't get much credit for that. So I'm going to bring you back to Fado and Aaron, a long time ago, and I think actually it was probably about 1999 when a group of us first met. And it was Siobhan Craig, who some of you may know, a Donegal woman, who noticed that with the passing of the Northern Ireland Act, there was one small part of it, Section 75, that addressed, lesbian and gay and bi, as they would have said in those days, equality. It didn't mean very much, and just to remind people about what it was like 22, 23 years ago, there was no Equality Act. You could be sacked because an employer didn't like the colour of your socks. A lot of people, Stonewall reckoned that at that time 68% of LGBT people were not out at work because they had no protection. Certainly here they had no protection. There was no civil partnership, no marriage, And that was reflected then in the situation that a lot of women find themselves in who had young children, where they were at risk of losing custody of their children, possibly to an heterosexual partner, but also just sometimes because queer parenting was under a lot of scrutiny and there was a lot of religious objections to it. There was no protection of goods and services. People, got dragged out of restaurants for having the nerve to kiss each other or to hold hands, and they had no recourse in the courts. And of course, there was no sexual orientation strategy. As far as I know, there is still no sexual orientation strategy. And I remember going along to the early meetings about the first sexual orientation strategy, and there was still a slight frisson of excitement of being called into Stormont in those days. That, gosh, we've made it. And I remember a senior civil servant, and he said to me, I was just stunned, he didn't know me from Eve, and said, that the minister, who was a DUP guy at the time, said, he doesn't give an F about you. And, which I knew anyway, but the fact that a senior civil servant would say that, and it wasn't the same DUP politician, but it was another DUP politician who, when the organisation was originally called LASSI, Lesbian Advocacy Services Initiative, and I said, that's Ulster Scots for lesbian. And needless to say, he didn't laugh. But so with Section 75, for the first time, government were accountable and had a duty, a statutory duty, not to introduce legislation or policies, not actually legislation, policies within the statutory services that discriminated against LGBT. In fact, there wasn't a T actually in those days. So that we felt at that time that really it was very much up to us to push for that, and we felt that if the lesbian and bi woman's visibility within that was quite small, and that bear in mind there was no lesbian organisation at that time bar Lesbian Line. And so there wasn't a lobbying. There was a coalition on sexual orientation which was doing a very good job, but equally that women always tended to fall off the edge. So LASSI was set up, and the first thing that it did was manage to get funding to do a piece of research, which I think Nikki made reference to, called A Mighty Silence. And that was, I was looking through it today, and it's still, what we were asking for in those days was that that existing services should somehow bear in mind that we existed in the world, and as Andrea, I think, very eloquently put it, that the pressure that we felt under had a large impact on our mental health, and I would include myself in that as well. And in fact, research in Queen's showed that 1 in 2 lesbian and bisexual 16-year-olds had expressed and were measured as having very poor mental health. And I used to go around and say to people, is that you or is that me, the 1 and 2? Or is it both of us? And so there was a lot of pressure, and there was no organisations doing anything at all to even acknowledge that lesbian and bisexual women existed, and I include the youth services in that. The other piece around that we felt, I suppose there were 3 pieces to LASSI being set up, and one was to campaign that existing services would actually acknowledge us, and the other was to have an advocacy organisation that could campaign that was human rights based and could campaign for the human rights of lesbian and bi women. And then and that would be to try and have an impact on government and decision makers. And the third piece was the provision then, to campaign for the provision of dedicated services, for example, counselling services. Now, at the time I was looking at the report and everybody said, and including me, is you cannot do those three things at once. And we were advocating that a human rights approach should be taken. But as you would be aware, HereNI is now doing those three things with very few resources. That a lot of the provision of dedicated services has been put back onto our community. Now that would be fine if there was proper resources for it, but currently the people in HereNI and people working in this sector are on low wages, low pension rights, working under pressure with very little recognition. And the resources still aren't there, that they're all very short term. And I think Cara said to me that out of those 10 workers, 8 of them, their project runs out next year in terms of resources. So I wanted to just reflect on what, and there's copies you can look at in Mighty Silence, and unfortunately it's still very relevant, as is the other piece around lesbian and bisexual women's health, which is called Invisible Woman. But the things that I just wanted to finish by talking about the things that are still needed, and one of them is resources. If there was a sexual orientation strategy, for example, the PSNI would be required to come up with a plan of action. And there's nothing like that can actually, when people have to put stuff down on paper, is to give them a shove in the right direction. It means then that it's much more transparent, and you can also criticise the fact that in some instances in our society we're moving backwards, we're not moving forwards. The one thing that came up a lot in talking to people, and I think it still applies, and again I don't keep referring to you, Andrea, but that there is, because of our situation in society as women and also as lesbian women, we carry a lot of responsibility, and we don't have the opportunity as in mainstream society to develop leadership. And it was one of the things that we felt that we needed to do is, there's a real lack of confidence within the community, and I feel that that's still the case, and that we need to be having, leadership development programs right throughout the queer community. But again, to ask the people in this room to do that who are already working flat out, it's something that government needs to look at. And then the other place is in terms of levels of involvement. That one of the things that a lot of the women said, because they had responsibility for elderly parents, for younger children, whatever, they wanted to have different levels of involvement, and congratulate and thank the people who have worked on the boards, and how that is kind of unfortunately they won't be giving out medals for it. I'm not sure if you get a better place in the next life either, but you used to believe that's all gone. It's important that people have an opportunity, and I would say this is true of society, that we've moved from participative society to being representative, and that in fact the chance for your ordinary Josephine and Joseph to participate in building society, in building social and political movements has shrunk quite a bit. And then the final one that we all need to pay attention to is diversity, and that we still, within our own community, that there's not many black faces here, or people with disability. And I know it may seem like a lot to ask, but it was one of the things that came up in a Mighty Silence from people who are already made invisible by the fact that they're female, and their diverse sexual orientation. The fact that the colour of their skin also gave them an additional burden to carry. And I think I know that Katrine's here from the Rainbow Refugees. So we have to pay attention ourselves to making our organisations more diverse. And the biggest indicator of, I have a particular interest in mental health. The biggest indicator of poor mental health is class and low income. And again, we need to be building leadership amongst people who have been already failed by the education system, failed by employment practices, and that the best thing you can do for your mental health is to join a group and is to fight back. So well done. I'd like to ask for a round of applause for HereNI and the work that they've done.
Thank you so much, Mary, for your inspirational words. Thank you. Just before I hand you back to Helen, I would like to highlight that we have a stall over just to my left there with information about all the projects that we run, and especially the absolutely magnificent Here Together project, which I hear is fabulously well organised. So please feel free to take some leaflets for yourself or for some of the you know you might find them relevant. So now I'd like to pass you back to Helen, our chair. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Grania back for all the dedication and hard work she was doing. And also a bigger thank you, not just obviously to the staff of the year, but to making this event happen tonight. And to have such high quality, so I'm going to say another round of applause. That's why you want an event, isn't it? It's all runs so smoothly. I'm thinking duck, but then it's the feet because underneath. So I love the fact that you're getting celebrated tonight as well, because you really do put hard work in, and we look forward to the updates that come through from Cara and then get a chance to actually spend time in person. As well as some faces tonight that people have been involved in HereNI many moons ago, and as I said, they're all stuff that's still very, very relevant. There's somebody special I want to mention who's going to kill me for trying to mention it, but I'd love to do a special shout out to Sally from the board, who is stepping down after a long, long time of wisdom, but I love it if you come up, Sally. You are very welcome to share your words, but also we have a small gift for you of Lars, who's going to help it for me. We're going to read it for everyone. So, surprise!
Totally scolded. Thank you very much for this. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on the board of HereNI, and there's other ex-board members here as well, and it's been a wonderful journey to be on. I've really enjoyed my time working with Cara and all the different other members of the board, and I'm really excited to see all the new board people that are coming in to take my place. I've worked on HereNI, I think, for 6 or 7 years, and it's been an exceptional time. I've really, really enjoyed it. My third grandchild is on the way now, so life is getting in the way of my time to be on the board. But it's been a delight, and I wish the rest of the board, Helen and the whole of HereNI, the very best of luck. I will be championing you at every opportunity, and I'll continue to do so. But all the very best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you for the lovely words. This is just the opportunity for me to close our event tonight, but thanks to St Condoms for looking after us and everyone who's listened so well. And as mentioned, there's lots of resources and bits and pieces here tonight to take home, and let's see what happens in the next few years.